Hey, what's up guys? It's Zoko here with another New World video. Today I have a new build for you guys. It runs the Great Axe with a sword and shield. This setup utilizes a nice blend of both offense and defense. I don't claim this as some new meta or anything, but I found it a lot of fun to play. If you plan on running this for PvE, it will do alright, and there might be some tweaks you need to make so it's better optimized though. As always, we are going over the skills first, attributes, gems, and gear afterwards, and then we'll talk about some strategies to use for PvP. This build is utilizing one thing in particular for a ridiculous amount of burst damage, so make sure not to miss out on that. Be sure to leave a like and comment on what you're hoping to see next. Subscribe for more New World content if you enjoy it or find this informative. I also do some streaming on Twitch, so stop by there and pick my brain if you'd like. Starting off in the Swordmaster tree for sword and shield. We are first picking up Empowered Stab. After a successful heavy attack, you are going to get an Empower buff of 30%. That is the percentage your damage is going to increase for 5 seconds. Achilles Heel will have your final attack in your light attack chain cause a 20% slow for 2 seconds. Our first active skill is going to be Reverse Stab. This is a fairly heavy hitting skill that will deal 175% weapon damage. Precision increases our sword's crit chance by 10%. Unstoppable Stab will add grit to Reverse Stab. This is going to make the attack unable to be interrupted. Mobility will increase our speed while blocking by 33%. This is pretty important to us with this build because we generally are setting ourselves up with our shield first. Now, Counterattack will grant us Empower anytime we block an attack. This buff will be a small increase of 3% for 5 seconds, but it can stack up to 5 times. Leaping Strike, you leap 6 meters and deal 135% weapon damage. This can be tricky to land sometimes, but it is a decent it is decent as a gap closer. I actually prefer to use it on someone who decides to turn and run. Main reason for this is one of the add-ons we get a bit later on. Opportunist will have us deal 10% more damage to slowed enemies. We have a few ways we cause enemies to be slowed with this build, so this can really help in stacking up some damage for us. The Final Strike add-on for our gap closer will cause us to deal 50% more damage to enemies below 30% health. Tactician. On a successful hit with Reverse Stab, all of your sword cooldowns are reduced by 25%. With this add-on in mind, it's a good idea to try and use this after some of the others if we can. It's a great skill though, and you don't have to use it this way. If you have the chance and you feel like you're gonna hit, I say go for it. But because of the cooldown, it may benefit for you to be more tactical in your approach with this skill. That's all I'm saying. With Confidence, you will deal 15% more damage at full health. This is another thing that benefits us with using sword as our opener. Hopefully we don't get tagged before making our first move though. Critical Precision will gain a 20% haste for 5 seconds when we land a critical hit. There doesn't seem to be any mention of a cooldown here. And Cowardly Punishment. If your Leaping Strike hits an enemy in the back, they will be slowed for a massive 8 seconds. That is a long time in a PvP fight, and chances are if you were running, things weren't looking that great for you. This would be pretty much a death sentence in that instance. On over to the Defender tree. Sturdy Shield grants us an additional 15% physical armor. Shield Bash is, in my opinion, our most important skill here. We use this to set ourselves up for some big damage. With this skill, we deal 50% damage and stun enemies in front of us for 2 seconds. We need this whole skill line. Again, this is very important. Intimidating Bash will cause more threat to be generated, important for PvE tanking, and causes 100% more damage. With Final Blow, the third attack in your light attack chain deals 15% more damage and causes more threat. Concussive Bash will increase Shield Bash's stun duration by 1 second, so now it lasts a total of 3 seconds. Now we are moving on to Great Axe. This build is actually slightly different from my previous videos with the Great Axe, and I will get to that reason here in a bit. Starting off in the Reaper tree, we are grabbing the active skill Reap. This will extend our axe about 5 meters out and pull enemy towards us for 100% weapon damage. This is also compatible with a taunt gem if you're using this for PvE purposes. Greed will cause light attacks to give us a 5% damage boost for 5 seconds on a hit. This can stack up to 3 times. Critical Gains, when you make a critical hit with your Great Axe, you heal yourself for 10% of the damage done. The Collector extends the range of Reap from 5 meters to 8 meters. Death's Embrace causes us to do 10% armor penetration on enemies below 50% health. Frustration is my wife's best skill. After one of your attacks is blocked, gain 15% damage for 10 seconds. Execute is a major skill for us with this build. I don't see many builds utilizing it, which is one of the reasons I came up with this whole thing. I see it as a kind of a challenge. This is a powerful overhead attack that deals 200% weapon damage and will deal 300% weapon damage on enemies under 50% health. Keen Edge increases crit damage by 10%. On grabbing Hunger, Reap now heals us for 30% of the damage done. At the time of this recording, Reap is a little bit buggy and hasn't been tossing me my heals, and I'm hearing the same thing for some other people, but I am hopeful it will be fixed soon. The skill still pulls people towards you. You just be aware that some of the benefits might not be there at this exact moment. Unstoppable Greed, Execute now has Grit during the attack. Remember, that means that it cannot be interrupted no matter what. Feed causes any Great X attack on enemies below 30% to heal you for 10% of the damage done. Now we grab Executioner. This guarantees Execute to be a critical hit on enemies below 30% health. And finally, I'm sure it's no surprise to many of you, we are grabbing Bloodlust. This causes us to move 30% faster and deal 15% more damage when looking at an enemy within 15 meters. All right, moving over to the Muller tree, we have the standard setup that I like. We are first grabbing Heavy Pull, which pulls enemies towards us when we use a heavy attack. Enduring Strike will add Grit to Great Axe heavy attacks and grant a 20% damage reduction while the heavy attack Grit is active. Definitely reason to get in the habit of using heavy attacks if you haven't been. Gravity, after you cause a pull, your enemy is held still 30% longer. Very helpful for our CC abilities. By CC ability, I mean Gravity Well. This causes a massive vortex that pulls enemy towards the center for 3 seconds. At the end of the vortex, it's going to explode and dealing 125% weapon damage to enemies inside. Crowded Well increases the burst damage of that Gravity Well by 10% for each enemy inside of the vortex. And with Unyielding, any allies gain 10% fortify while standing inside of the vortex. That means a 10% damage reduction. All right, let's move on to the attributes. I went with roughly 2/3 strength and 1/3 constitution for the attributes alone. Obviously, gear is going to add more to that. I think you should aim for about 100 constitution ultimately. This will get us a perk that increases our max health by 10% of our total physical armor. Being that this is a pretty aggressive in-your-face build, having some extra hit points is going to be very, very helpful. If you want more than 100 constitution, gear included, that is completely up to you. But wherever you end up feeling comfortable, take whatever else you get and just pump it into strength. For the gear, I'm fairly torn between heavy and medium. I think I'll be using the max amount to keep me in the medium bracket. Keep in mind your shield does count towards the weight of your weight bracket as well. For the gear specifically, I'm using a heavy chest, and then everything else that I have is light, and this puts me right on the border at 22.9. There's honestly no specific reason that I'm going with the kite shield though, and so if I see something later on that will benefit my build more, like maybe there's a specific shield that is augmenting a skill that I use a lot, maybe I end up switching to that, and I'll have to adjust some other pieces at that time to better optimize my weight and get the most out of my armor. All of that, though, I'm just going to play it by ear and feel it out for what's best for me. For the gems, I suggest Onyx. It's my favorite gem for armor. It's also one of the most expensive and sought after, but with that gem, you are getting some more physical resistances. So again, that is very, very important for a build this aggressive. All right, now let's talk strategy. Okay, so obviously we have more defense than a lot of other builds out there, and the idea is to use it to our advantage. So a lot of players tend to show their best move kind of out of the gate. They might not have the patience to feel a player out, and they have this anxiety to get a head start. So letting them decide how to approach you in many ways will end up benefiting you. Now, against a major and archer, you may have a harder time because they have skills that can just circumvent the shield entirely. So it's important to understand the situation you are presented with. So the first tip is patience. Really learn patience. If you're coming from a much more aggressive builder style, kind of like I have, there will be growing pains when learning this, but it will pay off for sure. And learning how to play like this, in my opinion, will make you a more well-rounded individual when it comes to PvP. All right, so let's start talking our offense. Once you start engaging your opponent early on, I think you should do some light attacks here and there and block in between. We are trying to set up our opponent, but have them be somewhat chipped down in health when we launch our main combo. All right, so for the combo, the first thing we want to do is heavy attack. This will grant us empower of 30% for 5 seconds. From here, we are going to shield bash, which stuns for 3 seconds. We're immediately going to switch to the great axe and drop executioner. I have tested this, and you absolutely have enough time to get a free hit of Executioner. This is not a skill I just use without setting up for it, though. It has an extremely telegraphed animation that is easy to dodge for pretty much anybody half paying attention, hence our Shield Bash setup. From this point, we are committed to our assault. Stick with the Great Axe for that damage efficiency, Bloodlust to stick with them easily in case they run, and then probably right after Executioner lands, I would drop Gravity Well, just in case they had a little bit of hope left. You just crush that then and there. If they have a way to speed out of your Gravity Well, you should just be able to stay on top of them with Bloodlust. You also have Reap in the chamber to reel them back in if you prefer. Now, this is how this all works in a perfect world. I have done it before. I promise you the timing works. Maybe there are some skill effects that recover stun faster and make it to where someone can just make it out. To be honest, the Hatchet skill Berserker would do that if they have the right add-ons, but I think that is going to be the exception. Also, the first time you do it, somebody might not be ready to counter it. Even if they had the ability, they would have to act super quick to do it. I don't have a lot of footage showcasing fights because everyone lately seems to be leveling and not want to walk around flagged up, but I have tested enough that I am confident you can get a free execute in after you shield bash. Now, I'm not sure if the empower is going to stay there for the execute. That's more for the shield bash, though, to be honest. We ideally want to land the execute when someone is less than 50% HP, because remember, it deals 300% damage at that point instead of the 200%. That's why we are also picking at them here and there early on. Either way you use execute, though, it will be big damage. And assuming it lands, your opponent will probably immediately start trying to figure out how to escape, which by then is probably too late. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, share it with someone you think it will benefit, comment on what weapon combo you want a build of next from me. Don't forget to stop by my Twitch and we can brainstorm some builds together. It's always fun coming up with ideas in that way. I appreciate you all so much. I'll see you in Eternum.